I once deeply loved my wife, who betrayed me and had been unfaithful with the best man at my wedding for nearly a year. This is not only a personal tragedy but also a severe test of marital trust. In the video, I will elaborate on how I discovered this betrayal and how it completely changed my life. Welcome to the Butterfly Tumblr Radio channel. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and give it a thumbs up. I, 37, had been married to my ex-wife 34 for 4 years. Unfortunately, we had to part ways, since my ex-wife committed the worst thing a woman could ever do to her husband. My ex-wife and I met at a business lecture in town. We went there to listen to a well-known corporate guest speaker, and we happened to sit next to one another. Throughout the seminar, we discussed a few topics, the majority of which were related to what we had studied. Following the seminar, we exchanged contact information, we began talking, and about a week later we decided to go out to lunch. As we ate lunch that day, I was struck by her intelligence and enthusiasm for business. Following our initial date, we saw each other more frequently. I fell in love with her, so we eventually started dating, and a year later we married. We had been married for 4 years before I realized she was making a fool of me. I'd want to add that while my ex-wife and I were married, there was nothing she desired that I didn't provide. I was, and still am, a businessman who earned a respectable living. My ex-wife did not have a business like mine. She worked for a business consulting firm and was paid nicely. We didn't have kids because she stated she wasn't ready, and I was fine with that. Throughout our 4-year marriage, I did my best to be a nice husband and even helped at home. I wanted nothing more than to have a happy marriage for as long as possible, which is why I treated her like a queen. I offered to help in the kitchen. I took her on surprise vacation and did pretty much everything a man would do to make the lady he loved happy. Even on my busiest and tiredest days, I made sure I got home early. I never cancelled on her, and I usually had to reschedule a lot of things, because I believed that family was one of the most essential things in life. On our 3rd wedding anniversary, I made sure to do something huge for my ex-wife just to make her happy. I know this sounds basic, but the most important thing to me has always been my wife's happiness. I didn't know that while I was always thinking about my wife's pleasure, she didn't prioritize mine, and she didn't care about me as much as I had imagined. A few months after our 3rd anniversary, my wife's attitude started to shift. She became chilly towards me and lost the spark she once had. She used to be really clingy in a good manner. We had always had a close bond and exchanged random kisses, but that all came to an end. It started with fewer talks, and then she began to drive me away with her attitude. She stopped chatting about her co-workers, girlfriends, and the minor details we gossiped about. Then it turned to complaints. As a concerned husband, she would moan about little matters and become easily offended. I was concerned about her sudden change and attempted to talk to her about it, but things did not go as planned. Instead of attempting to resolve problems, she informed me, and I quote, "There are different seasons in marriage, and this is just one of those seasons where I want to be on my own, and I would appreciate it if you could give me space." Her remark surprised me, and, to be honest, I felt terrible about it, because I never asked my wife for distance, even on bad days when she asked for it. I did, and our communication worsened. From there, things became so bad that we barely communicated, and I ended up cooking for myself while she cooked for herself while this was going on. I never notified my in-laws, and neither did my wife, despite the fact that she was a daddy's girl. I didn't tell my in-law, since I expected my wife to change her mind and we'd return to our old ways, but months have gone and things appear to be growing worse between us. One day I was at home when I received information that my wife had airdropped her pictures to me, and when I opened them they were racy photos of her. She had not sent me photographs like these in a long time. I only received that type of image from my wife while we were still dating and in the early years of our marriage, but from the moment things became tense between us, I didn't receive a single text message from her. That day my wife returned home. She asked if I liked the images, and she was being friendly to me, which was strange. That was the longest chat we'd had in weeks, so it didn't make sense for her to suddenly send me photographs and appear as if everything was fine. When she behaved that way and even made me dinner, my senses told me there was something wrong and those photographs had to be an accident. So I dug that night. She was sweet enough to join me in bed after a long time. I had planned to snoop through her phone after she slept, and that is exactly what I did. After she slept, I opened her phone using her fingerprint and discovered a significant secret first. My wife had been cheating on me for almost a year, and the person she intended to give the images to was the best man at my wedding, not me. It felt like a dreadful dream that I needed to wake up from. I was crushed and distraught, and I couldn't believe that the woman I adored could do such a terrible thing to me. After all I had done for her, I considered addressing her, but knew it would not go well, so I captured screenshots of their conversations and sent them to myself. Then I removed any signs that showed I had touched her phone. The next morning, she returned to her usual attitude, unaware that I had found the truth. That same day, I contacted a divorce lawyer to begin filing our divorce papers, and then I emailed all of the proof to her father just to show him the beast he had created when her father viewed them. He didn't call me. He called his daughter instead, asking her to explain what he had just read. When she found out I knew, she started phoning my phone and screamed at me for not speaking with her. Instead, I told her it was meaningless, because she and her partner were already going to leave me. When she returned home after all of their plans had been completed, all of her belongings were on the front porch and she gently removed them without making a commotion. The most distressing aspect is that she never attempted to apologize or expl. Lying. She quietly left, and when it came time to sign the divorce papers, she did so without fuss. We are now divorced, and she has been one of my biggest life regrets. I adore that woman more than I do myself. In the end, I got played anyway. This happened 3 years ago, and I thought I would share it. Most women are awful and they do not deserve to be spoiled or cherished. I haven't been in another relationship since then, and I doubt I ever will be. I've been scarred for life, and it's better to devote my time and energy to growing myself and becoming the man I want to be. I am sorry you had to go through this. Your wife was a serpent, and I wish you hadn't done so much for her. Women make it very tough to be loved. Imagine how she treated a good man like you simply to be with another man who will abandon her as soon as he gets weary anyway. It's excellent that you've moved on and are focused on things that will benefit your life. Do not worry about starting another relationship right now. There is no haste. You were a decent man, and I hope you find someone who truly loves and cares for you someday. Thank you for sharing your story with us. Let's move on to the second story of the day, story 2. My wife and I had just been married for 3 years, and I assumed our love would last forever until I found a dreadful truth. My ex-wife and I had known one another for a long time before we married. We were high school sweethearts and began dating around the conclusion of my senior year. I adored my ex-wife because she had the ability to make anyone happy from the moment I introduced her to my parents. She got along well with them and they loved her. My ex-wife and I dated for over 5 years before getting married, so you can understand how close we were. We, like other adolescent couples, experienced ups and downs, disputes and separations, but we always came back together because we loved one another. She was my first genuine love, and I can't picture living without her. Fortunately for both of us, we were admitted to the college of our dreams. She wanted to stay in our hometown for school so she could care for her sick mother while I attended school in another state. Fortunately, after graduating from college, we both found well-paying employment in the town where I attended school, forcing her to relocate. We married a year after she moved in with me, and I honestly believed that nothing could separate us. My ex-wife was a good girl. She remained calm and constantly smiled, and she was not a social butterfly. She wasn't a social media addict, but she could make everyone around her feel loved. We had no conflicts or fights for the first 2 years of our marriage. We were content and were working towards purchasing our first home. Since my parents divorced and my mother cut off all communication with my father, I requested that he pay me and my ex-wife visits on occasion. I believed he'd be lonely back in our hometown, so he'd usually stay with us for weeks until he got bored of being around. My father and ex-wife had known each other for years, so she never objected when he stayed with us for a bit. In reality, the two of them had a wonderful connection and got along really well. I was always glad that my father could visit my house without feeling excluded, and I always commended my ex-wife for treating and caring for my father as if he were her own father. All the time I was blithely congratulating my ex-wife on getting along with my father. I had no idea that anything unholy was going on right beneath my nose until I found out. Also, every time my father would stay at my place for some strange reason, I would go to bed early and sleep until morning with no memory of what had happened the night before. It had been going on for a long time, and it was becoming increasingly suspicious. I wanted to tell my ex-wife about it, but it would sound ludicrous to assume that someone was either giving me sleeping pills or taking my memories away on various nights, so I opted to keep it to myself. On that fateful night, I purposefully refused to drink the glass of water my wife had placed by my bedside to determine whether my suspicions were accurate, and what I observed that night transformed my marriage. Around 2 a.m., I awoke to the sound of television and laughter. I checked the time and it was an unusual time for someone to watch TV or laugh like that. When I turned to tap my ex-wife, I noticed she wasn't in bed and our bedroom door was slightly open. At first I wanted to shout out for her, but when I heard the sound and laughter, I realized it was my ex-wife and my father laughing. I got out of bed because I was curious about what they were seeing and why they were so cheerful, and to my great astonishment, I caught my ex-wife and father cuddling in a really amorous posture, kissing one another. I was so astonished and heartbroken that I had no idea what to do for a minute. After processing what I had just witnessed, I took a few photos before returning to bed as if nothing had occurred. There's no point in questioning if I'll be able to sleep the rest of the night, because I didn't. My wife went to bed at 5:00 a.m. and when it was 6:30 a.m., she got up and got ready for work. Because I was so devastated and had no one to talk to, I called my mother and told her what I had observed. Following my parents' divorce, my mother and I had a tense relationship. I was upset at her for abandoning my father and kicking him out of the house, and I always assumed she did it for the money she wanted from him. But when I informed my mother what I had witnessed, I discovered that the reason she left my father was because she saw my ex-wife and father cheating throughout our dating years. She discovered romantic messages and nudes they had shared, and she couldn't tolerate the betrayal, so she divorced him. My father had been talking nasty things about my mother for a long time, even accusing her of cheating on him with a younger man. Meanwhile, he was the guilty party. All of the nasty things he said about my mother enraged her friends and family, who sent her cruel texts. I was devastated to see how he had depicted my mother as the black sheep. Meanwhile, he was the one who had an affair with a younger person, and discovering the reality inflamed my rage even more. Long story short, my mother came over to my house that day and we kicked my ex-wife and father out. My ex-wife started crying and asking for a second chance, claiming that my father encouraged and coerced her into cheating on him. I couldn't believe my father had been doing it with my wife for nearly 4 years and had kept me in the dark. He would come to my place for weeks, even in my absence. They had been doing it, and I suppose they only needed a daughter-in-law and father-in-law relationship to repay them. I made sure to send those photographs to everyone who had ever sent unkind words to my mother, and when they discovered the truth, they sent angry hate letters to my father and ex-wife. I've never been so heartbroken and betrayed in my entire life, and even though my wife and I separated and I cut off contact with my father, I still feel the pain every time I think about it. My sole comfort is that my mother and I have reconciled, and she is currently the only family member I have left. To be honest, I would never have guessed that my calm and humble ex-wife would do something so nasty with my father. Life occurs and I am pleased she is no longer in my life. I will never remarry and no woman will ever have the opportunity to hurt me or play with my emotions in that way again. This is really awful. I can't imagine the anguish and heartbreak you felt when you discovered the truth. Your father is a nasty person who does not deserve to be called a father. He could have had an affair with another woman, but he decided to do it with your wife. Your ex-wife never loved you. If she knew, she wouldn't have cheated on you in the first place. I'm very sorry you had to go through this, and it's fantastic that you've reconciled with your mother. You are not obligated to remarry. If you do not want to go forth and enjoy life, do what makes you happy, take care of your mother and remember that there is more to life than marriage. Here is the next story. After many years of marriage, it might be difficult to maintain amicable ties, because most of your time is spent with your family. When I managed to achieve some balance at a recent camping trip with friends, I discovered the terrible truth about my wife, prompting me to launch my own research. Some males are utterly unaware of this. I was one of them. Once men who don't notice this should have a special meeting area where we can gather, drink a few glasses and admit our stupidity. The only difficulty is that we will most likely not understand this meeting is for us. Sophia and I married when we were 20 years old. We spent so much time together that we reared 3 children, while also having fun in between pregnancies. I attempted to follow the book's recommendations, presenting myself as a devoted husband. When Allison left to college, I wondered how Sophia would spend her time after her children were grown. It found out that she chose to volunteer at the hospital. She volunteered 3 days a week, alternating shifts between the gift shop and the children's playroom, among other places. Despite the fact that her children were no longer living at home, our circle of friends remained close and met on a monthly basis for barbecues and house parties. Because of our shared interest in fishing, I got particularly close to 3 of the males in our group. We frequently scheduled weekend excursions together, generally 4 or 5 times per year. I used to think that our marriage was just like everyone else's. The couples around us live a conventional lifestyle. Our children have grown and gone away. Our ladies were preoccupied with other things. Some were working, some weren't. On the fishing vacation, we, the spouses, were focused on our careers, counting down the days before retirement. We talked about it all, sometimes delving into deeper issues like relationships and intimacy. In May, 4 of us went fishing. We sat on the boat staring at the water while my fishing line vanished beneath the surface. Our conversation began with Eric discussing his recent trip to Stanford to see his kid. He explained how his wife discovered an empty contraceptive packet in their son's room, which distressed him greatly. In response, Oliver shared a story about going home after visiting their daughter. College Liam admitted to his wife that she had an intimate relationship with her boyfriend. We smiled when he mentioned a young guy who was always wearing unclean clothes, slouching and in severe need of a shave. Daniel remained silent for a moment. I sensed his thoughtfulness. I asked Daniel what he was thinking about. You appear to be deep in thinking. He hesitated before responding. I don't want to say anything. If I'm incorrect, I might start something that offends someone, and if I'm correct it could harm all of us. Did you witness anything, or is this speculation? I asked after a little pause, and without being distracted by fishing, he eventually confessed. I observed your wife park the car behind the Marriott. Who wife? When I questioned him 3 weeks ago and the day before yesterday, he said. Eric asked, are you implying that Michael's wife is unfaithful? I cannot confirm her behavior. Daniel explained that he had only seen her at the Marriott twice in the past month. I bring groceries to the Marriott 3 times a week, just like every other hotel in the neighborhood. Oliver nodded, understanding his error. Thinking about the issue. I couldn't help but wonder why Sophia would visit the Marriott twice a month. Is she unfaithful to me? I stayed with the group to fish, not willing to disclose my suspicions about Sophia's infidelity. Back in town, I picked up Eric's car and headed home only to discover that Sophia had left. I sat down at my computer contemplating how to discover the truth about her whereabouts. I spent the next few hours searching for clues online, eventually ordering materials that could aid my inquiry and having them delivered to my workplace. When Sophia returned, I began flirting with her, but she waved me away, claiming she had a headache. It was expected. Within the next week, Sophia and I continued to live our lives normally, but I couldn't shake my concerns. I kept an eye on her and even called her at different times, but everything appeared to be in order. After receiving the box, I spent the night in the garage, discreetly placing a GPS tracker on her car to follow her activities. The next day I received another package and decided to install it so that I could discreetly listen in on discussions in Sophia's car. The next morning, Sophia remarked during breakfast that she had no responsibilities at the hospital and was going shopping from my office. I kept a close eye on her as she walked to the mall, then to the market. She returned home with her shopping at 1 p.m. At 1:30. She stepped outside again and drove south for 10 minutes, then east for another 10, till she arrived at the Marriott. I decided to leave the workplace and follow her to the Marriott. 5 minutes later I discovered her car and parked nearby, unseen but with a clear view of it. At 4:20 p.m. she left the hotel and drove straight to her car as she was leaving. She observed Ryan White exiting the same way. They nodded as she drove past him. Ryan White's appearance astonished her because he was married to one of the most stunning women in her social group. After he went, she remained in the parking lot until her phone rang. The voice on the other end seemed distant. "Michael, Sophia, why not simply say hello?" She inquired, confused. "Hello. What do you want for dinner tonight? How about trying something new, perhaps a hot sauce dish?" "Oops, we are out of sauce. Do you have any further ideas? Perhaps something fresh and healthful, like a salad or grilled salmon." I attempted to redirect the talk to familiar themes, diverting attention away from my genuine feelings. "What time will you get home?" "Around 5. "That sounds wonderful. See you later." After I finished up the phone, a sudden thought hit me and I decided to park and enter the Marriott. I observed the daughter of one of my clients at the front desk and made small conversation for a few minutes before gathering the guts to ask, "I heard that my pal lives here. Could you check it out without hesitation?" She inquired for his name, Ryan White. I responded. Her fingers quickly tapped the keyboard and after a few moments she responded. He checked into his room. As usual every Thursday morning, he checks into a room and remains until the following morning. Always choose the same room, sometimes these days, other days, but on Thursdays he has a consistent tendency. The computer was able to trace the pattern back to January. When questioned if it would be difficult to print out his notes, she wondered if no one would know about it. To this question, I promised her that this would not occur. "Do you require a hard copy?" She asked. "Yes, please." I responded. She offered me a memory folder which I wasn't sure I'd need right now. I thought it would come in helpful. I put it in my briefcase and returned home when I came. Marriott prepared a salmon salad for us to share together, as well as tea. She also told me about her buying experience. She mentioned that she stayed at the mall until 3:00 and then stopped at the market on her way back as she spoke. I couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't speaking truth. Justifying myself. I went to the restroom inside. I noticed a damp shower and clothing in the laundry basket. Anger rose within me. How could Sophia have had a month-long affair with Ryan? It was clear that she was being dishonest with me. After supper, she sat on the couch with a book. While I went to the computer and scrolled through our social media, I uncovered Ryan's wife's email addresses. When using another mailbox, I sent a message to her personal address which she appeared unfamiliar with. My message was direct. "If you want to discover who cheated on you, when and where, Ryan, please respond to this email. I have some evidence you might be interested in. I am not searching for financial gain." I sent the letter at 8:00 a.m. and received a response by 9:00. I have virtually the entire day off tomorrow and I'll be seeing the new house on Oak Street in Claremont. Please feel free to come to my house for lunch or at other time while it is open to talk. After that, I deleted both her and my emails before going to bed. Sophia joined me while I was already asleep. She had awoken early in the morning and was getting ready for her day at the hospital, while I was, as usual, getting ready for work around noon. I called Sophia and asked if I could take care of dinner that evening. "Are you planning on cooking? What is it exactly?" She asked, "Is there a particular meal you would like me to prepare?" I asked. "Jambalaya." She exclaimed, "Jambalaya." "It is." I reassured her. After confirming Sophia's GPS coordinates at the hospital, I quit my job. On the way I spotted Ryan and two other men enter the dining area. As I drove by his office, I soon located a parking area and discreetly inserted another GPS tracker in Ryan's vehicle. Then I went to the sandwich store to eat lunch. I requested a sandwich for myself and a salad for Ryan's wife. At around 1:00 p.m., I parked near the open house sign and approached it. Victoria blanched when she saw me. She got up quickly after seeing a sign on the street that said she'd be back at 2:00 and returned to the house. We sat down on the sofa, tears filling her eyes. She appeared to be on the verge of an emotional breakdown and was unable to speak. I also felt a wave of fear wash over me as I hurriedly searched through my briefcase. When she finished reading, I handed her the merry papers. Tears welled up in her eyes. As she spoke softly, I said I apologize. She looked up at me, her face filled with suffering and vulnerability. This disgusting man has been cheating on me for several months. He was romantically involved with my wife Sophia for at least some of that time. I sincerely apologize. She said. She paused, wiping her eyes before firmly stating that he will pay for this piece of paper means nothing. We need hard evidence and we must be prepared for the consequences. I agreed. I have the tendency to act without thinking. We need to devise a well-planned strategy. Victoria removed the lunch sign an hour later and we talked for nearly 4 hours. Unfortunately, no one showed up for the open house, but we had a plan ready before I left in the late afternoon. While browsing the internet, I discovered a conference in Las Vegas specifically designed for professionals in my field, as well as another for real estate agents. Excited, I informed Victoria, who also wanted to attend both events. As soon as my reservation was confirmed, I informed Sophia about the conference, emphasizing the opportunities for making contacts. I invited her to join me, but despite her apparent interest, she asked for time to think and said she would respond the next morning. Meanwhile, Victoria waited for Ryan to return home, informed him of the conference she intended to attend and invited him to join her. Unfortunately, he had to decline due to a hectic schedule. The next day, Sophia called me at work to express her concerns about traveling to Vegas for 3 days and 1 night, as well as the long drive. Despite my attempts to hide my disappointment, she mentioned the possibility of visiting her sister. We didn't discuss the trip at work. The next day, I contacted Henry Hawkins, my business lawyer, to ensure that Sophia had no personal or professional conflicts of interest. After confirming the situation, we discussed the possible consequences of the divorce and I carefully documented our conversation in a digital file I discussed within the division of the family property and expressed my concerns about fair treatment. He outlined a strategy to protect me and my assets and organized the collection of evidence of their affair. At 4:00 in the afternoon, my phone rang. It was Victoria calling from a pay phone. I had a room booked at the Mirage Hotel and she was staying at Treasure Island. She listed the things she needed to take with her and I advised her to take a laptop, a personal phone book and a cell phone that could be used in Vegas without a high fee. In the evening when I was finishing in, Sophia came and checked my suitcase. "You forgot your swimming trunks," she remarked. "I'm not planning on swimming," I replied, "but a quick swim can refresh you." After all your meetings, she advised I got the swimming supplies ready and she didn't say anything else. After packing my things, I put my suitcase in the car and did my evening chores before going to bed. I playfully suggested Sophia have some fun in bed before the trip, but she looked too tired. "Maybe when you come back," she said with a smile before dawn. I set off at 7:30. The phone rang and I answered. It was Victoria asking, "Where are you?" "I'm almost to Pomona," I replied. Then she reminded me. "Do you remember that there's a Denny's restaurant where we usually stop to go to the fair?" "Yes, it's about 2 miles ahead." I confirmed. "We go there and I'll meet you in 20 minutes. Do you agree?" she asked. I agreed. "Of course I'm hungry. Should I make an order for you?" I suggested. "No, I'll wait. You go ahead and start." She refused. I drove onto the highway and parked in front of Denny's restaurant. Victoria came in jeans, a loose Western-style shirt and boots, which was a surprise compared to my expectations. She greeted me with a smile and sat down and the waitress quickly brought her the menu and coffee while we were ordering. I couldn't help but notice how different Victoria was from the usually polished professional woman I was used to seeing, even at social events. After we ate, Victoria complained that she would have to go to Las Vegas alone. I asked her to come with me and she agreed. She followed me to the nearest parking lot. When we arrived, I asked about the price of parking for 3 days and found it acceptable. We parked next to each other and I helped her move her things into my car. Since neither of us needed to travel alone, we set off together for the next 3-5 hours. We discussed plans. I drove the car and she took notes. We stopped at Baker to refuel and take a break. Our connection arose due to the fact that we had experienced infidelity in our marriages together, but now a friendship had developed between us. I felt a strong connection with her, despite the fact that we had never really known each other during our journey. We experienced laughter, sadness and a strong sense of camaraderie. After dropping her off at a hotel in Las Vegas, I arranged to meet her for dinner later. While in my room I called my lawyer who, laughing, informed me that it was possible to return. He told me that my wife had gone to her lover's house and that they were captured on video engaging in compromising activities in the backyard pool. Even today's issue of Time magazine was on the table next to them. Maybe I should ask his wife to contact you. I wondered aloud. I wonder if she's already been contacted. If you both hire me, I can save you a significant amount of money. Thank you. May I ask a hypothetical question? Of course, what happens to the case if Victoria and I decide to be together during our stay in Vegas? Unless your wife or Ryan is monitoring your whereabouts, nothing will change. We will block both numbers. Do you want her to submit the documents first? Order them before you return. No, I want to be present when the locks are changed before the documents are brought to her. I also want to get a restraining order to keep her away from my business and home if possible. When do you need to prepare everything? I'll talk to Victoria and let you know. An hour later I arrived at Caesar's, the restaurant Victoria had chosen. We sat down at the table, talked and began to enjoy the meal. Using my mobile phone, I contacted her lawyer and advised him to refrain from any action until our return. In the meantime, I've instructed my assistant to gather additional evidence while we're gone. It is preferable to have enough evidence than not enough. After the conversation, we paid the bill and walked around the shopping district together, refraining from physical contact. Despite my strong desire to do so, the thought that Sophia might cheat on me in my absence did not leave me. We reached the taxi rank and she returned to her hotel when she was about to get into a taxi. I felt how she wanted to kiss me and I reciprocated, but we restrained ourselves half an hour later. When I entered my room, the phone rang. It was Sophia. It's getting late. Where have you been? She asked. I had dinner at Caesar's and went for a walk. I responded, I saw a beautiful outfit that I think you like. Should I buy it for you? Open clothes. You know I don't often dress provocatively. I can't believe I'm almost 50, so it's a rejection. Yes, it is, but if you come across a beautiful necklace or another piece of jewelry, I would be grateful. Okay, I'll take a look tomorrow. In the meantime, I'll turn off the phone and get some rest. Good night, Sophia, I adore you. Sweet dreams. Good night. She never said she loved me. When I finished my nightly routine and climbed into bed ready to turn off the phone, there was a knock on the door. Hi, I said, opening the door and letting Victoria in and closing it tightly behind her. I was standing in a towel and she was still in jeans and a Western-style shirt. Ryan was at home and didn't respond to my call. Since he was laying in bed with your wife. I could not quit thinking about it. During our cab ride to the hotel, I returned to my hotel and begged the receptionist not to disturb me for the night. I quickly made the bed and came straight here. She welcomed me with a smile and a hug. I couldn't help but wonder, are you here to exact revenge? Initially I wanted to be with you to punish the treachery that we both endured, but now I don't feel motivated. Ryan damaged our marriage. I might be sad for years and pretend to be a victim. When melancholy music came on the radio, I was drowning in self-pity instead of collapsing into despair. I made the decision to modify my life and accept it as it was. I want you to be next to me in bed, but I don't want us to be intimate. I longed for your company and love, but I wasn't ready for anything more yet. She explained, and I put my arm around her shoulders. I asked her what she liked. I like being loved and taken care of. She said I will give it my all. I promised. I went into the bathroom and started the shower. We took turns, showering and kissing before going to bed. Victoria, I'd like to lie down, hug and fall asleep with our arms around each other. I said. Victoria softly held my face in her hands, a tear running down her cheek. We exchanged gentle kisses before she climbed into bed. I made place next to her and she snuggled up, wrapped her arms around me. I gently kissed her on the lips and we both fell asleep. When I awoke, she shocked me with another kiss, resulting in a more intimate encounter between us. She took the initiative and I couldn't resist her advances. We were both exhausted after a passionate meeting and chose to sleep some more. When we eventually awoke, it was nearly midday. After showering and dressing, we went to Victoria's room where she needed to change into fresh clothing. I phoned our lawyer, who told me that Ryan and Sophia had spent the night together in our marital bed. In addition, the photographer photographed several rooms in our home, including the backyard bedroom, living room and my computer desk. I thanked the lawyer for the information and finished our talk. Then Victoria and I got in my car and drove to Lake Me. As we continue our trip, we will have conversations packed with a range of emotions, from rage to grief. The discomfort had not subsided by the time we arrived in Kingman, Arizona. My heart felt heavy with despair. Our chat revealed that Sophia and I had lost the love and connection that we once enjoyed. We still care profoundly about our children, but our love for each other had evaporated. Victoria also saw that her relationship with Ryan had reached a breaking point. We stopped in Kingman for dinner before returning to Las Vegas. We're lost in our own thoughts. The time passed quickly as we talked about our life and future plans, including our hopes for the coming years and what would happen to our children after the divorce. Back in the hotel, I collected my belongings, loaded my bag into the car, checked out and moved into Victoria's room. She began crying while we were laying in bed together. Despite my best efforts to stay solid. Like John Wayne, my hero, I too found myself on the edge of crying. Unlike my prior experience with Sophia, where our time in bed was centered on achieving rapid pleasure, lying in bed with Victoria provided me genuine joy simply because she was there for me. These new emotions were unlike anything I'd ever encountered before. The next morning we had another private time before deciding to snooze. When we awoke, we got lunch and drinks in our room and prepared to leave. We exchanged passionate glances and kisses. When we arrived at the parking lot where Victoria's car was parked, she inquired what now I also considered our next moves. I do not want to share a bed with Ryan. I want to be with you. She sat down and looked at me bewildered. You stated that you wanted me to be with you. Not. Ryan and Sophia have been doing this for a long time. Why can't we let them do it? I responded. Really? She said, yes, let us do it this way. We won't feel furious, abandoned or offended. They will be able to realize their aspirations and we will win. Have we won? The true victory is waking up with you every morning and living with you. But what if Ryan is only playing games with Sophia and does not truly want to be with her? In that situation, people will only receive what they deserve if they give up honesty. They are missing two lovely people as well as their homes and family. Increased transparency would benefit all participants. I need time to think about everything. Let's meet at my office to go over everything in more depth. Have you have enough time to think about everything? Let me clarify. You are suggesting that we live together. Victoria, are you advocating that all four of us get divorced? As soon as the divorce is finalized, the four of us will officially divorce. I want to marry you the very next day. Will you marry me? Although we only recently met, we had known one another for many years. It's only been a few days since we hadn't considered the prospect of love. At the moment, I am entirely committed to loving you. My feelings for you are genuine, Victoria. Please ponder about this when you visit my workplace. Drive carefully. I bent over and kissed her as she entered the car. This kiss was a promise of love that I was willing to give. She put a towel on the seat and drove away as she left. I pondered if she would come to my office, accept my offer, and where I would spend the night. Victoria was already in the parking lot. When I arrived, as soon as I parked, she rushed to open my door and slid into the small area between me and the steering wheel. "I love you," she exclaimed impatiently. "I'd like to wake up with you every morning. I'll marry you." She lingered for a moment, kissing me before asking what we were going to do. "Next we need to speak with our husbands. Let me check the GPS to see where they are." Both beacons showed that they were in Victoria's home. "Sit down. We'll go to your place," I said. 10 minutes later we arrived at the house and parked behind her car in the driveway. We heard faint sounds as we quietly entered the house through the back door. After searching the entire home, we discovered them on the floor in the living room. Sophia deceived me there. They ignored our presence and continued their operations. I encouraged Victoria to sit on the sofa and took a seat beside her. Victoria avoided looking me in the eyes. The situation was loaded with a variety of words and behaviors that were not always appealing. After a time, they ceased their shenanigans and Ryan saw us. "Oh no," he exclaimed. Sophia noticed us and froze. Victoria interrupted the stillness. "You've damaged my carpet." Sophia ran to find her clothes, but Ryan remained seated on the floor observing us. I mentioned that maybe you need some time to get ready and dressed. "Oh my God, Mick, I feel terrible about this. Was not anything we had planned," she exclaimed as tears welled up in her eyes. "Let's chat when we need to freshen up and change," I offered. When they stood up and exited the room, I gathered their clothes and went to the bathroom. Victoria was already trying to remove the stain from the carpet. "You will determine the following steps," I informed her. "What house should we live in? Would you like to stay here or at my place? Why should I choose?" She responded, "It is their fault for betraying us. We need to make a decision." Ryan and Sophia entered the room. Just then I invited them to another sofa and they sat at opposite ends. Victoria eventually gave up and joined us, sitting next to me on the couch. Ryan began to speak, but Victoria cut him off with a raised hand, silencing him. Then she looked at him and asked Ryan, "Do you truly love this woman? Is it just physical attraction?" After a moment of silence, Ryan lowered his gaze and confessed to Sophia, "I think I love her." I turned to Sophia and asked her, "Do you love Ryan?" Sophia responded immediately, "If things were different, would you consider living together?" Ryan paused before saying, "I don't want her marriage to end, so you're asking me for permission to keep seeing my wife. Do you believe Victoria should face the consequences of your actions on her own?" I asked sharply. "I did not want you to find out. I did not want anyone to be hurt." Ryan confessed, "I want to save my marriage." Victoria asked coldly, "Do you mind if I have an extramarital affair?" Ryan's eyes widened as he protested. "No, you are my wife." I continued. "How would you react if I had an affair with Victoria right on the carpet in your living room?" Ryan was stunned. "No, it should not be like that." He said, "Wait, are you connected?" He questioned Victoria incredulously. "No, I have never been involved with Victoria," I clarified. "I thought it would be fair if we played out this scenario with both of you present, so you could see the emotional toll of betrayal." Sophia wiped her tears with a napkin and apologized for offending me. Ryan accused Sophia of deliberately planning and returning to the myriad for extramarital affairs, causing me even more pain. Victoria ordered Ryan to pack his suitcase within 5 minutes and be out the door in 6. She told him to contact her lawyer and arrange for the return of the rest of his items. Ryan stood motionless while Victoria looked at her watch. Then she turned to Sophia and warned her that she would be heading to our house soon. Sophia had 5 minutes to pack your things and leave. Upon arrival, Victoria repeated that they both needed to contact your lawyer for further preparations. She threatened that if any of them returned without going through a lawyer, she would distribute incriminating photos to everyone, including their children. Victoria warned Ryan, reminding him that they had 4 minutes in hurry. Ryan quickly headed for the bedroom. Victoria started counting down, and when she got to 1 minute, I went to the bedroom door. "You better leave before time runs out," I said. Ryan quickly packed up his things and left without saying a word to either Victoria or Sophia. "It's time for you to go, Victoria. Don't forget to lock the door when we leave. If Ryan comes back, call me," I ordered. I told him that the photos would be on the internet before he could find them. I added, "Be careful, we can't predict what Ryan might do," Victoria warned. I followed Sophia as she was leaving the house, and she followed my car to our house. I opened the door a crack and greeted her. Tears ran down her cheeks as she entered the house. Once inside, she sank into a chair in the kitchen, shaking with sobs. "I'm really sorry, Michael." "Good, that's how it should be," I replied. "In January you started a relationship with Ryan and our intimate relationship ended. Did I miss something? Have you been unhappy with me?" "No, it's just that with Ryan, I got a sense of importance. I believe you can do it without me. The children don't seem to depend on me. You seem to have everything under control. Ryan made me feel important. He didn't even say goodbye when he left. He's not filing for divorce, which means he doesn't want to be with you. We're just a convenient choice for him. Do you understand what role you played in this situation?" I met her gaze and gave her the answer she was looking for. She was a woman known for her free morals and could be content with being alone. I could only hope that everything she had done was worth the consequences. This led to the collapse of her marriage, her home, her possible future with me, and perhaps even her relationship with her children. Sophia sat with tears streaming freely down her face. I took a Diet Coke from the fridge and sat down in front of her. When the tears subsided, I looked at my watch and reminded her that she had the 5 minutes we had agreed on. As soon as the timer on the oven was set, I noticed that when everything goes according to plan, she wouldn't be there. A moment later the door closed behind her. I watched her pack 2 suitcases into the car and drive away, with Ryan following in his car in my office. I turned on the surveillance screen and saw that they were both parked nearby. As I turned on the recording, I heard the car door open and Ryan got in. Sophia's sobs echoed in the car. They won't actually divorce. Ryan tried to reassure her, but deep down, Sophia knew the truth. I was going to get a divorce and would never take her back. I used to be a good wife, she lamented, feeling that now she was just nobody. "What have you done to me?" she accused Ryan, her voice full of pain and anger. "What are you going to do now?" she demanded, feeling abandoned and betrayed. "You don't care what happens to us. We got caught and now you're leaving me," she accused him, calling him a jerk. "If I could, I would send these photos to your children, not mine," she threatened, her voice full of bitterness and resentment. "I can't bring myself to do this. I can't bear the thought of my children seeing me with you, with the one who ruined my marriage," she cried, her voice breaking a moment later. I heard the car door open and close. Then there was the faint sound of the engine starting and the car drove away. I turned off the sound, feeling a wave of anger and bitterness wash over me. Despite my emotions, I couldn't bear to watch Sophia suffer. There was an empty tissue box in front of me. While rummaging in the garage, I came across a set of locks that I bought a few years ago but never got around to installing. When I finally installed them, Sophia's keys no longer fit my house. I immediately called Victoria and asked, "How are you?" She replied sadly, and confirmed that she would be back soon. Ryan had come to the house and wanted to talk to her, insisting on being let in. I quickly left the house, knowing that the journey would take only 10 minutes. I told Victoria to call me on my cell phone if he showed up before me. Ryan turned out to be even more disgusting than I imagined. He dumped Sophia, used her for his own pleasure, and cheated on me without hesitation. I curse him for his callousness and swore that I would never accept him into my life again. Hang on, I'll be there soon. I love you. I said. The call ended abruptly, leaving me with a heavy heart. While driving, I followed the speed limit as I drove into the driveway. I noticed Ryan's car parked at the curb and saw him standing on the porch deep in conversation. As soon as I closed the car door, he stopped in place and turned to face me. Let me talk to Victoria. No, she was your wife. I replied sternly. I warned you not to come back, but here you are. Remember what I promised to do. Don't make me do this. I just want to talk to her. He insisted. It's too late. I've seen you and I've already sent out photos. I have more than 100 of them. I even sent some to your children. I said coldly. I sent letters to your friends into the newspaper, each with your face in it. Talking to Victoria won't save your marriage. You will receive the divorce paperwork on Monday. Congratulations. You wanted to have fun, but you received more than you expected. Ryan ignored a police cruiser parked nearby and aggressively approached me. I didn't move, watching him approach. A hard hit to my chest pushed me to the ground. Just as the attacker was going to strike again, 2 police officers soon intervened and apprehended him. I'll find you, he yelled as he was detained and put in the back seat of a police cruiser. Victoria arrived and we chatted briefly with the authorities, while the guy continued to hurl threats from the car. When the police left, we returned to the building. Did you really email those photos? No, it will only damage Ryan. My children are set to come next weekend for their mother's birthday, and if they are intrigued in the images, I will not dare to show them. I hope they don't ask to view them. Witnessing Ryan's inappropriate behavior with Sophia was too much for me. I do not want our children to find out about this. Part of me wanted to understand the issue. Why didn't you do it? He created a bleak vision of my future, filled with loneliness and a burning desire for him. Despite his statements, there was a clear lack of love for me, our children and our family. A part of me was afraid to open the door. I'm still hopeful that he and I can solve everything. But while I stood there, I made a decision. I did not open the door. When I noticed his automobile on the street, I understood I didn't need him to feel complete. Over the previous 4 days, I've recognized that I shouldn't be alone. I don't need his presence anymore. There is a man who adores me and is delighted to express his feelings for me. There's a man who has been looking after my children for a long time. You was their football coach, not Ryan. You went camping with us. You fixed the leaking water heater standing in the doorway. I observed Ryan was upset and decided to call the police. I spoke with them, recounted the scenario in detail and stated my concerns about his predisposition to brutality. I noticed them driving up to the house. I was worried he would harm you, and he did. His punch caused you excruciating anguish. I was hoping you could kiss me to lessen the ache. It seems like a good idea. Perhaps we might go to the bedroom to relax a little. I hugged her and she hugged me back as we proceeded to the bedroom. To my amazement, the room was completely vacant. The bed was not made and there was no carpet on the floor, despite the lack of decorations. We spent the evening together in bed, cuddling, kissing and enjoying one another's presence. Till the sun came up, Victoria's and my phones both rang as the light filled the room. Victoria answered hers without getting out of bed and I dashed into the hallway to respond. Sam called. Dad, what's happening? My eldest kid was on the phone, but wilted. I asked, what do you mean? Sam revealed that he called his mother in the morning to plan their approaching weekend visit. However, she burst into tears and told him to call me. After disconnecting up, she ignored further calls. When will all 3 of you be allowed to come home? If necessary, we can come over tonight. What's happening? He asked. I can't talk about it over the phone. Call me back and tell me how you intend to return. If you are traveling by plane, I will meet you at the airport. If you are traveling by automobile, please notify me when you return. You don't want to tell me about it on the phone. No, I responded. I apologize for keeping you waiting, but it is better this way. Following the call, when I looked inside the bedroom, Victoria, who was on the phone, appeared pale and immobile. As soon as she noticed me, she motioned for me to approach. She interrupted the conversation for a second, closed the phone and whispered, "This is Lily. Her father called from Pris yesterday night asking for assistance with bail. She wants to know what occurred. Please find out when they can return. We desperately need to hold a family meeting. My kids are returning tonight. Let's meet at my house and spread the news." Ryan was still in detention while Sophia's whereabouts remained unclear. Victoria told her daughter to return home and take her brother with her so they could communicate when they were around. They were scheduled to meet at my house. Lily asked Victoria a lot of questions, but Victoria promised to answer them only when they were together. I contacted our lawyer to arrange for the release of the images and informed him of the attack and her future plans. He approved of our approach and promised to personally bring the images that he had made. I purchased packing boxes and packed Ryan's belongings before storing them in the garage. Victoria found a spare key to his car, which we stashed in the garage before heading to my house. Calls from Victoria's phone were redirected to mine once inside. I started packing my belongings while Victoria looked around the place and asked me for suggestions. When the phone rang, I checked the caller ID and handed the phone to Victoria. Lily said she'd be there in an hour. Victoria thanked her and concluded the chat shortly after my children called to say they would also be there in an hour. Victoria offered to order pizza and salad for delivery, which she did, collecting clothing and other items. I felt compelled to do something to busy myself. When I got out of the bedroom, I saw Victoria standing at the window. I went over and hugged her, knowing she would be emotional. Any cries or anger were not intended at us, but rather out of disappointment. We felt resentful and betrayed. I persuaded myself that we had done nothing wrong and reminded myself of our mutual affection. I knew I could not do it without her. Yes, we can do it, and so can you. I hope my presence here makes your life a little simpler. She murmured, bending down to kiss me. At that point my son's automobile approached the entryway. This coincides with the arrival of the pizza delivery. I am going to arrange the table, Victoria exclaimed, hurrying into the kitchen. When I opened the front door, I noticed my son Sam helping Victoria bring food into the home and quickly paid the delivery man. He looked around, taking in the spectacle before us. He saw Victoria, but his mother was nowhere to be found. "Where's Mom?" he asked. I said I don't know. Victoria's children appeared and I welcomed them heartily. They began to ask questions, but I raised my hand to stop them. "The meal can wait," I said. "Let us all assemble in the living room and I will explain everything." Victoria's children sat on one sofa, mine on the other. I asked Victoria to sit in a large armchair and I got a chair from the kitchen. I was about to sit down when there was a knock at the door. My lawyer, Henry Hawkins, gave me a huge envelope. He silently wished me luck when he noticed all the kids in the living room. He inquired whether I needed him there. When I rejected thanking him and closing the door behind him, I sat down and decided to share the story rather than answer individual inquiries. When I started talking, everyone froze. "I went fishing with pals a week ago," I began. My acquaintance stated that he saw Sophia at the Marriott Hotel in the afternoon. Intrigued, I attempted to track her car using a GPS tracker. A few days later, Sophia went back to the Marriott. Soon after, she left Victoria's husband. Ryan White entered via the same door. After grasping the issue, I obtained Ryan's hotel records, which revealed that he had been renting the same room intermittently since January. The children exchanged glances and Ryan's son pointed out that just because they shared a room does not mean they were unfaithful. The entire group nodded in accord. "You're correct." One of them spoke. I decided to hire someone to check it out. Hopefully there was no affair. I also phoned Victoria to ask if she knew anything about why Ryan was seen at the Marriott. Our lawyer recommended that we leave the city for a few days to gain a better understanding of the situation. Victoria stated she traveled to the Mirage in Las Vegas while I went to Treasure Island the next day. When I spoke with the lawyer, he indicated that he had images of Ryan and Sophia which were in the mail. Lily asked, nodding to the envelope on the floor. Yes, I responded, Victoria and I have decided to postpone our return for another day. This situation is very terrible. When we returned, they were at Victoria's house. We caught them red-handed. We proposed that they get divorced so that they could be together. Ryan declined, but Sophia accepted. After allowing them to retrieve their personal stuff, we led them out. I haven't communicated with Sophia since Victoria approached me after Ryan returned and threatened her from the porch. She notified the authorities and Ryan was jailed after attacking me and threatening both of us. As far as I know, he remains in detention. The interrogation started. Do you desire a divorce? We both confirmed this. Have you seen the photos? We witnessed them cheating on us in your mother's living room. You should not look at the photographs. They are required for legal reasons. If necessary, father is going to jail. He attacked me and threatened your mother in front of 2 police officers. I believe you will serve his sentence for this, Mom. How long ago did you discover your father was unfaithful? I found out when Michael showed me the hotel record. He took our retirement money to reserve a stay at the Marriott Hotel. Wow, Lily exclaimed. The others nodded their agreement. So what happens next? One of the masks, there will be modifications. I chose to sell my house. Victoria said that it's too big for her right now. Mom, I do not want to move, her daughter interjected. I'm considering getting a roommate. Lily's question changed the course of the conversation. Mom, are you and Michael together? Victoria said that they spent a lot of time in Las Vegas. However, upon coming home, they chose to continue their relationship before we discovered our spouse's adultery. Michael and I had never kissed, but now I have the honor of calling Michael my lover and future husband. We hope you can accept the new reality we are facing. We adore each of you. There was a long period of stillness in the room. Lily eventually got up from her seat and approached me. She knelt down and tentatively accepted the packet. She muttered, I don't want to see these photos, but I feel compelled to. I refuse to believe this story, but if the images prove it is true, I will have no option. She spoke with trembling hands. She cautiously opened the mail and glanced inside. She looked at just one snapshot before swiftly closing the package and exclaiming, what a scoundrel. She handed me the envelope containing the text. You must tell them what you think of him. I was tempted, but before I could do anything, Victoria's son approached and grabbed the envelope from my grasp. He reached inside and pulled out roughly 10 images. He gently studied each photo before returning it to the envelope. After that we devoured the leftover pizza and salad. At 9:00 p.m., we ate at a Chinese restaurant. Despite the obstacles, the children, who have been lifetime friends, have accepted their new status as members of a mixed family. While we were waiting for fortune cookies, my son, Ethan, suggested that we arrange a hike this summer. Victoria smiled and answered. Some of my fondest memories from when you were younger were the hikes we took together. I remained mute for a time until Victoria's daughter Lily looked at me and asked, may I, Dad, may I? Tears streamed down my face. How did she fall in love with me so fast? How could I refuse? They all agreed with her statements. I apologize. May I? Of course. It sounds fantastic. Let's organize our schedules and choose a date. We exited the restaurant. Our plans for the first family camping vacation were eventually approved. Resentment and sadness remained, but we looked ahead with hope. 4 years have gone. Sophia has not appeared in court and has gone missing ever since. The day after speaking with the children on the phone, she took money from her credit card and vanished. Ryan is currently serving a prison sentence ranging from 2 to 5 years. The children have yet to visit him. The envelope remains with me and is safely preserved in our house safe every year. We keep our family custom of hiking together. Ryan had the chance to keep his home employment and Victoria. I wonder whether he ever considers it. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode of the story, please give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe to get notifications for updates.